So getting a little bit more into what we're going to go over in the demo portion of this is looking at the Revit versus CAD overview and how does moving to BIM save you time and design. So if we look at the design and a little bit more than the technical coordination end, BIM is able to save you a considerable amount of time in design because your design remains flexible for a very long time. You know, all the way through SD, through DD, and even into CD, where sometimes, you know, CAD can be a little bit more static because the changes become very, very, it takes a very long time to successfully implement those changes, where in BIM, because you stay more flexible in your design, you're able to do things like design studies and show design options and show different design studies to a client so that they, you know, can pick which option they want and then implement that into the model. And that's a part of your main model rather than having 15 different save as options in CAD and then, you know, even having to do the due diligence of making sure that it's organized correctly on your company networks and all of the XREFs are up to date and that tracking exercise. You know, BIM really helps keep the model flexible when it comes to design. By reducing this amount of time and tracking and changes, you're also able to provide more sketches and things to your clients. You're able to, oh, all of a sudden a client wants to see what this section looks like. You can simply put in that view, cut that section, put it on a sketch sheet, hit print, and you've got a new section in less than an hour, where if you were creating an entirely new building section from scratch in AutoCAD, the return time, the time that it would take to turn around and get that to a client is considerably longer, which therefore lends itself for design decisions being longer, because if they want to see these different options, the longer that it takes to get them those options, the longer, as I'm sure we all know, it takes to get a decision back from them. Another thing is just the accuracy of the information. Because you have tools such as, you know, scheduling, you're able to have these tools that provide you a very accurate description of what currently lives in your model. So if I have 100 doors in a model, but the design says I'm supposed to have 96, I know that there are 4 extra doors because the door is not going to appear on the schedule unless the door exists. So we get to a lot of things in scheduling, such as counting the number of elements, especially when it comes to doors, windows, interior partitions, furniture, to also all of the information associated with that. So instead of having the size and height and type of window in 3 different places, we're able to put that into one central location and hit print or export to that schedule whenever we need it, providing very accurate information, and also being able to accurately find maybe something that's wrong in the model and we have too many doors or too many windows, or, you know, we thought that we changed all of the sizes of these windows, but turns out that we didn't. BIM is able to help save time in that aspect of the design as well. So several other ways that you can benefit from this, again, is the coordination, reduction in human error, and then, you know, the design schedule. The coordination part of this, getting into that a little bit further, you know, this also has to do with when we start getting into very intense coordination and class detection with architectural elements, structural elements, MEP elements, the moving around of core building systems, you know, are we now in a situation where we have a raised floor system and all of our elevator lobbies have to change, or the top of our stair needs to change because of this raised floor system? Did the elevator core move, but did we move that shaft next to it? What are the MEP implications that go along with all of this? So BIM is able to have all of these different items, 3D, real live time, all together in the same model via linking in MEP, structural, all of those different models so that we can constantly see what's going on there. So moving on from this now, now that I've sort of gone over all of these different benefits that BIM has, it's how do we make the move into BIM? So first and foremost is definitely the appropriate and necessary training so that we know how to use the software. Oftentimes when I work with firms, sometimes they get really bogged down and get really frustrated with Revit in the beginning because they are in fact trying to use Revit like CAD. And in my experiences, when folks try to make Revit operate the way that CAD did, it's one of the easiest ways to have the software fail, and you sometimes are making the software work harder for you rather than work smarter for you. So not only is it important to get necessary software training and knowing what to open and knowing the tools and knowing where to click, but it's one step further on that training and understanding the difference between a CAD workflow and a BIM workflow, and a CAD culture versus a BIM culture, even outside of just the tool of Autodesk Revit that we'll be talking about today, and understanding the planning sessions that, if you take a little bit longer time to plan on the front end for what some of your deliverables are down the road, once you have those planning stages intact, you're able to document things very quickly and really execute a very aggressive project schedule. And also, a lot of times folks send their production staff to the training, but oftentimes project managers get left out of that. And that sort of creates this dialect where if a project manager has, been very experienced and very successful in this CAD workflow, and they find themselves in a situation that they're moving to BIM, but because they don't understand the workflow, and that, there's things that, again, on the front end in BIM may take a little bit longer, but the amount of reporting and information that you get on the back end so much faster, there may be an unrealistic goal of how fast it takes to do something, which leads into folks being in client meetings promising that something can be done in a day because you could quickly go into CAD and budget, print it, and get it out, when in the reality, sometimes when you're updating the model, it might take a little bit longer to update that model. But when you update the model and all of your floor plans, all of your elevations, all of your sections, all of your schedules, everything that's associated with that element is now up to date, you're providing a better and smarter platform of information to your clients to make the best decisions that they need. And then, the last part of this is actually, if you have a new project, a lot of times people transitioning from this CAD workflow to the BIM workflow, depending on the level that your staff is already at, they tend to run the schematic design process in CAD and then switch over to design development in Revit once, things are more developed. And so with that, I do recommend that if you are someone who's thinking about switching over to the BIM workflow, that you really want to think about putting that schematic design level basis of design in Revit as a parallel track, so that when you get ready to switch over to the design development process, you already have a live working model that's working for you. The sheets are in there. The set is basically cartooned and already recreated in Revit, so that as you're taking these CAD floor plans, linking them into Revit, and tracing over and developing your model, on the day that 100% SD goes out the door, you're ready to start your design development phase, you have a working model that is already up to speed with that basis of design. You've already done the training so that people can just jump in and get to work right away, because sometimes folks want to do that training maybe 6 months before a project goes into them, and we all know that a lot of us are the user or lose it kind of mindset, that if you go to a Revit class and you don't get into a Revit project until 6 months later, a lot of times that training that you went through, you almost have to re-go through the training because your mind has not been in that space for such a long amount of time. So, if you're making that transition over to BIM, I would definitely look at the timeline that is associated with that and what those implications are based on whatever project you want to use as your pilot project to transition. So with that overview, I am going to move now into the demo portion of what we're doing here.